Good evening, Soul Fam. It's Mandala from Substance Over Star, and welcome to a new video. So today, you guys voted on my Insta stories the week before last, saying that you wanted me to do a video on my experience with psilocybin. So here's that video. Apologies if my voice sounds a little bit strange. I am still ill. Thank you so much to everybody who sent me messages on Instagram telling me to get well soon. You know, I was feeling all your healing energy, and it definitely did help. Yeah, I've been sick for like more than a week now, which is really not great, but partly because I was working most days this week, so I wasn't really able to rest properly. But I made a post on my Instagram talking about my favorite natural healing remedies and what I use to try and get to cure myself of any kind of like bugs and viruses very quickly. So I was able to I was nearly dying like over the weekend. I actually got sick the same day that they started rolling out 5G in the UK, so it might have had something to do with that. I'm not sure 100%, but it may have correlated with it. Hang on, let me just put this on airplane mode. Yeah, so there may have been a correlation. And I was like, could hardly even get out of bed on Saturday or Sunday, but I took lots of colloidal silver and, you know, sort of apple cider vinegar and turmeric and ginger, garlic, honey, all that stuff. So if you want to know what natural remedies I used to heal myself, check out the Instagram post that's on my feed. Yeah, so what did I want to talk about? Yeah, I wanted to talk about psilocybin, yeah. So I did a psilocybin ceremony with a friend who is quite experienced doing psilocybin in a ceremonial way and not just in a recreational way. And we did it a few months ago, and for me it was my first experience doing it in this setting. It wasn't my first experience with, you know, sacred plant medicines. For those of you who found my channel via the videos that I've done on ayahuasca and DMT, and also cannabis and MDMA and other forms of you know, plant spirits and entheogens and stuff. But I had only ever experienced, I've been, you know, experimenting with magic mushrooms in a recreational way since I was a teenager, which I do now consider to be abuse of this sacred plant. For those of you who aren't aware of the history, magic mushrooms or psilocybin were introduced to the Western world by a Mazatec shaman called Maria Sabina, and she, but you know, before her death, she actually regretted introducing it to the Western world because our culture did abuse it and use it in, you know, we really dishonored the plant by using it in a recreational way. And while I had a lot of really fun experiences on it, I mean, it's a very laughter-inducing plant spirit. I don't want to call it a drug because I do feel that that's kind of a bit disrespectful to the plant spirit. While it can be really, really fun and entertaining, I always knew that there was something very deeply profound about it, but because my access to it was never through anybody who was experienced in any kind of shamanic practices or anything like that, it was only friends and stuff, that I didn't feel like I could really like scratch the surface to what it was really, really about. But I took it around when I was like 18, and I remember having a conversation with a friend at that time who said that he felt like these plants had been placed by God on earth for us to find so that we could tap into the secrets of the universe. And I remember hearing that at 18 and just being like, wow, that's, you know, that he's really touching on something there. I wasn't particularly conscious back then or spiritual. That kind of happened later, but that was kind of experiencing those different altered states of consciousness kind of really helped me awakened to the idea that there was more than just this five sense reality. And definitely my experience with psilocybin exposed me to even more of that, even though I'd already had experiences with ayahuasca and a lot of my experiences that I talked about in those vlogs, including my Kundalini awakening, contact with entities and all kinds of things I've touched on in those videos, and then also in some of my other previous videos. Doing the psilocybin exposed me to another dimension of reality that I never knew existed. Obviously, I was aware that we live the five sense reality in which we exist in, which we refer to as the visible light spectrum. It's only 1/10 billionth of all the frequencies and vibrations that are going on in the universe, just that we know of. So if you think how many other dimensions of reality are existing beyond what we can perceive, not just what we can see and hear and touch and taste and smell, but what even our scientific equipment can even read and record. There's even more going on outside of that. That's just kind of gives you some insight into how much is actually going on that we know absolutely nothing about. And I'll apologize if I'm not sounding particularly articulate during this video. I'm just still under the weather, so I'm just not really operating at 100% right now. He suggested that we do the ceremony at our place at night as well, which was very antithetical to me, because whenever I'd done magic mushrooms, and I'd done them numerous times, like in Thailand and stuff like that, we would do them somewhere in nature where there's a lot of things, stimulation, things to interact with, and during the day or around sunset, so that, somewhere that's very pretty, because it does enhance the natural beauty of things. So it's amazing to be able to do it, watching a sunset in Thailand, because you really start to commune with the magic and the majesty and the divinity of nature. And I have had experiences like that which were incredible, but I'm not going to talk about that now, because doing it at night when there's no visual stimulation to work with, I set up some candles because I wanted to kind of create a sacred space and kind of make it really comfortable and have some kind of visual stimulation that that my perception could interact with, so that I knew that I was tripping. But none of that is necessary, actually. Like, when you do it in this kind of ceremonial way, and when I use the word ceremonial, I'm not talking about, these kind of like the incense or sage or feathers and rattles, and but all of those kinds of spiritual tools do have certain functions that can be helpful. It's not about the kind of song and dance that goes into it. It's more about the intention and the respect that you have for the plant, and that was the main thing that was necessary when we did it. It was about thanking the plant because it's conscious, it's alive, and you're taking it into your body. So when you're taking the plant into your body, you are actually communicating with its consciousness and its intelligence. So you need to start that dialogue with the plant spirit before you even ingest it, and program it with your intention. So I thanked the plant, and I did 10 mushrooms, which I think is a very, very high dose. I thought it would be fine because I am experienced with it, but in this setting, because I hadn't experienced it in this kind of way where, it's dark and it's at night and I don't have any visual stimulation going within, doing 10 mushrooms I think is a lot. So if you're thinking about doing it, I wouldn't start with that dosage. It wasn't like as terrifying as when I did the ayahuasca. If you haven't watched that video, then I recommend you watch that video, because they are quite the situation was quite similar. but I got different insights. But I can see why a lot of shamans are saying, especially European shamans, are saying that people should not be seeking out ayahuasca, that you can actually get just as deep insights when working with psilocybin, because within the right setting and in the right dosage, you can actually glean a lot of really good insights that can be very, very helpful for you if you're seeking healing and insight into, you know, whatever issues you're having in your life. And I just want to reiterate again that this, you know, it's not recreational. Like, this is something that, you know, you're tapping into these altered states of plant consciousness to help you with certain intentions. And that is the number one thing that you want to bear in mind before you go into it, that you need to have a specific intention. And I don't think I had enough of an intention going in, because my intention when I had the brew with the mushrooms in my hand, and I thanked the plant and I said, okay, I want you to reveal to me whatever I need to see, which is just too vague. And, you know, thinking that I would just see some cool stuff and some leaves and have a giggle, I was really not prepared for what was about to happen. So as I started to feel the effects of it, we started giggling, we started pointing at things, and, you know, just everything was funny, as it is with mushrooms. You know, things are funny. And then, because I couldn't really see much because it was dark, you know, we turned all the lights off and we just had candles on, and it was kind of, after a while it becomes boring just looking at the candle. I just closed my eyes, and whoa, like, it's like seeing into another dimension of reality with shapes. I wouldn't even call them shapes, because the word shape implies something that's either 2D or 3D, but this was another way of perceiving. They were shapes that I can't even describe, because it was like something in the 4th or 5th dimension. It was not even 3D, it was 4 or 5D. Colors that I'd never even seen. And I got the distinct feeling that whatever it was that I had consumed was not of this planet. It was almost like an alien plant intelligence, but a hive mind. And now I've done a little bit of research on psilocybin, and not just psilocybin, but just mushrooms in general. So, you know, if you know anything about plants actually communicate as a hive mind. They are a collective consciousness. Now, animals are also a collective consciousness, because animals are telepathic in the way that they communicate with each other. Humans are too, but we are much more disconnected from our multidimensional nature because of distortions and, you know, things that I'm not going to go into right now, but things that I've talked about in some of my other videos as well. You know, TV, the food that we eat, the chemicals we consume, fear mongering, you know, a lot of things that we consume, not just in terms of like what we consume by what we eat, but what we consume in terms of like the information and the knowledge and belief systems, keep us trapped in, you know, again, this a 5 sense prison. Basically, it's kind of like we're imprisoned by our 5 senses, because we're not tapped in to those higher states of consciousness where we can communicate with each other telepathically. We can communicate with other beings in the astral realm and things like that, but we kind of doubt the fact that we can, so our subconscious becomes suppressed. So I talked about right brain imbalance in some of my other videos, how our subconscious becomes suppressed, mainly through language actually, but that's getting in much deeper now, and I don't want to go too off base, but plants communicate telepathically through the mycelium of mushrooms. So it's actually the mushrooms, they basically have like a root network almost called mycelium, and that's how plants will you know, exchange nutrients, but also information, because nutrients are information. Same like the food that you consume. The food that you consume is information. That's why I always talk about being plant-based and not consuming animal products, because not only is it really fucked up to eat animals who didn't want to die and didn't give their lives freely, they had their the consent and their autonomy violated, which is a violation of universal law and has consequences. The consequences are the information that you're consuming when you eat animal products is that of death and destruction and slavery. Okay, apologies. I think I was talking for too long and my phone only lets me record for a certain amount. But yeah, so if you're consuming that level of information, that's going to keep your psyche vibrating at a very low level of consciousness. So if you want to raise your consciousness, you have to consume more high vibrational foods. So the information that you're consuming when you do the mushrooms, you're getting all this intelligence from the plants. The mushrooms, I'm convinced, are not from here. There's something that, that I think it's probably got something to do with the carbon. I need to do more research on it, but it's got something to do with the carbon that they're exchanging with the other plants. Okay, I don't know why my phone is like cutting out at the moment, so hopefully it should be fine now. Yeah, anyway, I don't want this to turn into like a massive science lesson, so I'm just going to talk about my insights. So I'm exploring this world of alien plant intelligence, and to me it felt like that I wasn't just communing with the spirit of psilocybin, of just the mushroom plant. Unlike when I did ayahuasca, I felt like with ayahuasca I was communing with specific plants that were just to do with the 2 plants that they use to make the brew, and then the animal spirits that are in that area. So there was definitely snake-like spirits, there were owls, certain plant spirits, and also like a certain female entity as well, who is apparently Mother Ayahuasca. And when I did DMT as well, I could sense the presence of a very feminine entity that was not... It's hard to describe because she's not like a discrete entity that's separate from us, but more like almost like a mother goddess that everything else emanates from. I guess Mother Earth almost, but not... I would say that it was a fractal of Mother Earth. So maybe not the entirety of Mother Earth herself, definitely not the entirety of the Great Cosmic Mother, which is the polarity of the all, as it separates into masculine and feminine. Then the feminine is, Sophia, or whichever tradition you belong to, you'll refer to the feminine aspect of God as something different. If you imagine that fractalizing into, all these other different feminine aspects, one of them would be Gaia, Mother Earth. It was almost like a fractal of Gaia. So it would be like a feminine entity that is connected to Mother Earth, but is not the entirety of her, if that makes any sense. So when I did the psilocybin, there was actually no sense of any... I'm kind of getting the feeling of something standing there, and I don't like it. 1 second. Where's my lighter? Okay, so with the psilocybin, I got the feeling that there was not a conscious... I wouldn't say not a conscious entity, because it was conscious, but it didn't have a form that I could relate to in a kind of human way. It was different. Like, plant consciousness is just different. It's just so different from how we operate as humans. And I really felt like trying to commune with this plant intelligence, that it was almost that it kind of saw me as a human as something like very cute, and very simple, and I was kind of trying to communicate with this plant intelligence, and it was just so vast, so vast, like so much more, like I was irrelevant. That's what it was. I was so irrelevant in this world. It was like all these plants were communing with each other, and I was just there to bear witness to it. And I was trying to understand, and I was kind of communing with the plant, being like, help me to understand what this means. And they were just like, why? So you can talk about it on your YouTube channel. That was all I managed to get from them. And they were just like, you little humans. And this was not in words. This was like, the way that they communicate is so much bigger than just words. And, you know, if we learn how to communicate through something bigger than words, we might actually get closer to being free. The fact that we use words to communicate is so limiting. It's so limiting. So I managed to get from them that this is beyond your understanding, that there's so much more going on than you even realize as a human being, that your life is just so contracted. Don't try and, because up until this point I was just trying to search for the truth, and I wanted to know everything about everything. And they were just like, don't even try, just find what's relevant for you to live your life, move one step at a time, because as humans we experience time in a linear way, don't we? Like 1 minute after the next. So we have to stay focused on one thing at a time, which I find very difficult. I don't know about you, but for me, my brain wants to go in so many different directions. I want to do everything, I want to experience everything, I want to create so much. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of this, like, I don't like the energy here. See, this is the problem when you buy secondhand clothes. They just come with so much energy of other people and stuff like that. And I don't really sage things when I buy them because I kind of like it, but right now I'm not wanting it here. So I hope you can still see me. I'll actually put that there so that it's not getting in the way. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, and one of the first things that I actually saw when I started to go under was, I'm sorry that I'm not talking about this in a chronological way, but it was such a strange experience that you almost can't, because it's not chronological. It's like it's beyond time. It really felt like I was tapping into a dimension that was completely transcended time. Like time was a one aspect of what I was able to see. It was almost like time was part of the space. So the shapes had time. Time was a shape. That's the best way I can think of to describe it, but it was woven into the other shapes. It's so weird. I don't know how to explain it. But one of the things that I saw was like a mandala made of fire, and it had eight different directions, and there was purple and orange and lots of other colors in between, and it felt so ancient, so ancient and so dualistic. And it was all encompassing. It had this feeling of, it was an entity for sure, but it was beyond that. It was all it was like an entity that encompassed everything. It was almost like, I want to say God, but not like, it's so weird to explain. This is why it's so hard to explain, and why I waited so long to talk about this, because it's almost like you can't even communicate this in words. But it was masculine and feminine at the same time. It felt so warm and loving and embracing and kind and good, but at the same time so dark and evil and scary, and I just didn't know what to make of it. And when I saw it, I had this deep recognition, like I knew what this was, and I had seen it before, and I knew it to the core of my being, because I was part of it. This is where it felt like source. It felt like the source of everything. And it was beating, and I was scared, like, and I was like, give me the Palo Santo. And so I had the Palo Santo, and I burnt the Palo Santo, and I'm not burning the Palo Santo right now because I know it's endangered and I don't want to be using all up my Palo Santo up. But I had the Palo Santo under me, and I was just like, you know, just doing this constantly, and as I closed my eyes, the Palo Santo smoke was coming outside of the middle of it, and it was the music that we were playing some, like, I don't know, like a healing frequency. I can't remember how many hertz it was, but it was something very, again, it had like an ancient tribal resonance to the music as well, so that really helped to kind of create the atmosphere. But I said to my friend, I was just like, this thing, it's trying to claim me. And he's like, what thing? And I was like, this thing is trying to claim me, and it says that I'm a part of it. And he was just like, well, what do you think? And I was just like, I don't know. Am I a part of it? And he was just like, well, do you want to be a part of it? And I was like, no. And he was just like, then tell it to go away. And I was like, can I do that? And he was like, yeah, tell it to go away. And I was just like, go away. I'm not a part of you. Which for me felt so difficult, because I saw this thing and I just accepted, you know, the energy that was coming from it, that's saying, you know, we're the source of everything and you're a part of us. And you have to learn to listen to yourself. You have to learn to listen to what feels good to you, because let's say it's true, even if it is true that that's where I came from and that's where we all come from, and we're all a part of this big web of dualistic, you know, good versus evil and masculine versus feminine. We embody all of it within ourselves. So what? In this lifetime, if that doesn't feel good to you, and in this lifetime you just want to be good and you just want to be masculine, or you just want to be feminine, or you just want to be evil, well, don't be evil. I don't think you should be evil. But maybe that's just my interpretation, because I think evil is bad, because that's what evil means. It's wrong by definition of the word wrong. But that's my path. That's what I came here to realize. I came here to realize that we're good. We're inherently good. We're inherently unified. We come from the same source. And when we harm each other, we harm ourselves, because we're part of the same web of life. Maybe that's not your journey. Maybe you need to experience evil, because the way I see it is also, I look at so many spiritual teachings and coaches, and, you know, I've come into contact with so many of these people, and a lot of them are spreading deception without realizing it, because a lot of these teachings sound good. So I've talked about this before in my video, Beware the New Age Trap, the 4 pillars of Satanism. So there's a lot of things that Satanism has propagated in the New Age, like, for example, eugenics. Eugenics, they cloak and they make it sound really good, like overpopulation is destroying the planet, and look at all the terrible things that we're doing to the planet, so therefore we must control the population. Now, that sounds like it's honorable because we're protecting the planet and we're being, you know, we're saving the earth, but we're actually talking about killing people. We're talking about mass genocide when we talk about population control, mass sterilization. Like, that's what eugenics is. Like, that's what it ultimately is. So that's evil. That's pure evil. Like, everybody that comes onto this planet is here for a reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't be born. The universe is balancing. It always balances out. So is the earth. The earth is a self-correcting organism. So if there are not enough resources to take care of everybody on this planet, we will naturally die out. We don't need to play God, and we don't need to control the population. The population will naturally be controlled. The only reason why we believe overpopulation is a problem is because we have a corrupt financial system. So you need to research the Federal Reserve, you need to research the fiat currency system, and understand that we live in a debt slavery system, and that's why we have a problem with resource consumption. We also have people crammed into human farms because of the slavery system that we live under. So that's why we think that overpopulation is a problem. But if you take the population of the planet and stand everybody side by side, they'll stand in an area that's smaller than one city in Australia. The world is not overpopulated, it's just badly organized. So that's just one example, right, of how evil teachings can be cloaked in something that sounds good, but can actually be evil. But that's, again, when you understand duality. Duality is actually, all things are the same thing, but just different degrees. So evil and good are actually the same, and they meet in the middle. So when you go too far into one direction, you go too far into goodness and righteousness, and ultimately you end up, I mean, I see some of these vegan groups on Facebook, and somebody was posting the other day about, I don't even want to repeat it, but some of these things that these vegans believe that, you know, we should do to people who eat animals. I understand where they're coming from, because when you watch enough of these animal rights videos and factory farm videos, and you see the way that animals are treated and the pure evil that we are perpetrating against them through our ignorance, it is messed up. But at the same time, somebody's not doing something consciously, that doesn't mean that you should consciously hurt them, because, you know, as Yeshua once said, forgive them, they know not what they do. And most evil is actually just unconsciousness. When we actually realize that, we're ready to actually face most of the evils in society, because there are some really dark things happening on this planet that are shrouded in silence, not just because the elites don't want people to know what's really going on. That's not even it. Like, the truth is out there, it's just fragmented, it's, you know, in little pieces, and you have to put the pieces together. It's that the public don't want to see. The public don't want to see the evil that's being perpetrated, because we are all connected, and nothing can happen without the consent of the collective. So, you know, I don't want to go too deep talking about conspiracies and things like that, but if we're talking about, like, you know, the darkest, most evil things that are perpetrated by people in power, those things don't happen without the consent of the governed. That's what law is. Law is by consent of the governed. So, you know, I started doing a video about psilocybin, and as usual, I've kind of gone off on a tangent, and my incense has run out. But yeah, it's, it is, it is interesting. One of the things that I think that I would, that would have been better, if I were to do it again, and I am going to be doing it again soon, and I'll talk about that again on my channel here, is next time I do it, I will go in with a very specific intention, because I think the last few times that I did plant spirit medicines, because it was kind of, I wasn't super experienced doing them, I got excited, you know, to find out all these insights, and I kind of asked too many questions, and, you know, tried to seek too much too soon, and you're tapping into an intelligence that's extremely vast. It's the Akashic records. You're basically tapping into the Akashic records, and if you don't have a specific intention of what you're trying to find out, it's basically like walking into the British Library and just going, books come at me, and then just picking up one here and reading a page, and then picking up there and reading a paragraph. You need to know what you're looking for, and when you know what you're looking for, then the plants can actually show you, but you need to not get too distracted, because not only will the plant spirits get confused about what to show you, but you'll also get confused, and you'll get distracted, and you'll just end up looking at loads of things that are just very blah, but don't mean anything. So, you know, understand that if you're going to be going on a plant spirit medicine journey, it's a journey. You're not going to do it just once. Like, you know, you might do it once if you don't enjoy it and you don't get the maximum benefit from it. But in order to get the maximum benefit from it, understand that, you know, it's a journey, and you'll probably need to do it multiple times for different reasons. So, you know, if you're trying to get insight after a breakup, have that as your specific intention, and not just the entire breakup, but maybe just one specific aspect of it, so that can help you get some insight on that. Or if you need, you know, guidance in your career, or you're trying to reprogram some subconscious beliefs around money or around fear, or, you know, heal ancestral patterns that are kind of causing problems in your relationships or whatever, have a very specific intention going in. So that's my number one tip. Also, make sure that the dosage that you do isn't crazy high. Like, if you're not sure, just go easy, and do it with somebody who you feel very safe with. I've talked about this before in my ayahuasca videos. It's not enough to just kind of go, oh well, they're shamans, they're professional. Like, if you become so sensitive when you're doing these things that you pick up on anybody's intention. So if you're going to do psilocybin with somebody and you feel like that person might have like some creepy vibes, or not, they might not even have creepy vibes, they might just like you, they might just be attracted to you. I mean, that's something that's, you know, specifically women, we need to be concerned about, because we do kind of go through the world, even though if we're not consciously aware of it, fearing sexual violence. And when you do plant spirit medicines, because of you losing control, you become even more vulnerable to that fear, and that can make you susceptible to then entities who might feed on those fears. And that's a very real concern, and that's something that I experienced during my ayahuasca ceremony, and it's not fun. Like, it's really not fun. It can be even more traumatic than something happening to you on the physical plane. So really, like, you know, girls especially, take somebody with you who you feel really safe and comfortable with. And I'm also trying to, like, remind myself of this myself, because I can be very gung-ho, and I'm very like, oh, I just feel like doing this, so I'm just going to go take off and go to another country and just go work with this shaman. But, like, just have somebody who makes you feel comfortable, because it will make the experience much more comfortable for you. Okay, so anyway, guys, I think that's about it. That's all I want to talk about on that. If you have any questions, please leave your questions in the description box below. If you have any suggestions for videos that you want me to talk about, then please feel free to suggest those in the comment box below, or send me a DM on Instagram. That's probably the best way to reach me. Also, a couple of you have asked if, you know, I can Skype with you and give you some insight into your own personal situation. So I'm now offering that as a service. So if you do want some insight into your personal circumstances regarding any of the topics that I've talked about on my channel, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. You can slide into my DMs, and we can take it from there and see if I can help you out. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. I will love you and leave you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. You're introduced to LSD, and unless you've taken some other drug, like for instance, like marijuana or something, well, you know, it's an altogether new thing, and